TwitchCon 2018, we have a tank. Where there's a tank, we got Sophie Line.
And where you can find a tank, you also find the Chieftain. So coincidentally, got the dynamic duo.
This is proof that we are not the same person. All right, so we're going to do a quick tour around the tank. Wonderful piece of equipment. M60A1, not in the game. The M60 Slick is in World of Tanks. Unfortunately, I don't have one. I don't think you have one either.
Yeah, I do. I've seen it. Yeah.
You have a 660?
M60 codes. Talk to Tragicloss.
Oh.
So the M60 in the game has the turret from the, what is it, the M48A2?
M48A5,
and it's really, really
yeah.
rounded. And so you can see from looking at this tank that it has a much more elongated shape, which provides better protection against like ballistics and incoming rounds. And it also is more spacious for the crew.
It is. And of course the fire control system and anything else that wants to be inside. All right, the suspension in this one is torsion bar.
Oh, right.
So basically there's a big long steel rod goes one side of the tank to the other, and it twists.
Okay.
As the suspension bar goes up and down, it twists, and that twisting, the elasticity of the steel, people don't think steel is elastic, it is. The elasticity of the steel will push the arm back down, and that gives you your suspension. All right, so I've mentioned the searchlight. I've mentioned the aircraft flying overhead because the San Jose Convention Center is right underneath the flight path to San Jose International.
Right, so the big Xenon searchlight, what are we going to use that for in, like, say, a combat or your routine situation with an M60?
Well, that's an interesting problem, because the problem when you turn on your headlight and you're looking around for the enemy is the opposition are going to see you before you see them.
Right.
So if you go around in a platoon of 5 tanks, one person in that tank, one tank in that platoon gets to be the spotlight tank. Guess what his job is? He turns on his light. And he looks around, and if you see something, everybody else shoots at it. But you have to turn it off after about 15 or 20 seconds because, hey, people are going to shoot at you as well.
Okay, so we didn't see these on tanks that were in World War II. When was a system like that brought about and implemented?
Very, very tail end of World War II. The
All right.
British did come up with this thing called the Canal Defence Light, which the main weapon was the light. It was so secret that nobody wanted to use it, because if they used it, then it wouldn't be a secret anymore. So they had 6 battalions of these things, and they never used it. Do you watch the tank chats, David Fletcher's tank chats?
Of course.
All right. David Fletcher does a tank chat on the CDL. So that was where you started. Then by the time you get to the Korean War, spotlights and searchlights actually do start coming along.
All right.
There were this little diversion the Germans tried actually putting it onto one of their Panthers. Didn't work. They took them off and said it was a complete
That was the
waste of
vampire
time.
system or something
But
like this.
They were the ones that were so desperate to try anything that it didn't matter if the other countries had said, no, it's not worth it, we're not going to do it. The Germans go, what have we got to lose? We're losing anyway. They do have the 105 gun, which is on like every tier 10 medium in World of Tanks that's not Russian.
Pretty much.
Is there a tier 10 medium that it's not on? AMX-30, I guess, is a different 105.
Yeah, probably.
This is an excellent British gun. And again, people think, not invented here. The Americans won't use things that aren't invented by the Americans. Case in point, they will. If it's good enough, they'll nick it.
Cool. Are any things from this tank that other countries used? Anything from the design of this tank that was brought to any other vehicles?
The engine was very, very good.
All right.
The diesel engine in that was, for example, the Israelis put it into absolutely everything, into Centurions, into brilliant engine. Fire control system, and I don't think it was really used by anybody else per se directly. The level of commonality we have today wasn't there. All right. Here's your next trivia knowledge. This little bulge. People always ask me what that bulge is for.
Right.
Do you know?
That's for like when you're firing and components may expand and change, is to keep things equalized?
No, it is
Not
called
so
a
much.
bore evacuator.
Okay.
Or a fume extractor.
Is that so when the gases so when you're firing your rounds and there's a chemical reaction in there, and
There
so you
is.
got hot gases and you have to
Yes.
get that out of the barrel and not into the tank's
Correct.
face. Right.
That's exactly what it does.
Keep
So
the crew safe from really hot and toxic
Right.
gases.
So you fire around, and after the big boom, you'll see a little puff of smoke about a second and a half afterwards. The way it works, little holes inside here that are angled forward.
Sure.
When the projectile is coming down the barrel and it's about here, you have all that high pressure gas you were talking about. That sort of seeps into the bore evacuator, and it fills it up with high pressure gas. Projectile leaves the end. Now there's a low pressure gap that all this high pressure gas can come out of, and because
Right.
the holes are angled forward, the gas comes forward. When the breech block opens at the back end, it creates a
There's
flow
like a,
of
sort
air.
of a differential can kind of bring a place for it to go out rather than back into the crew.
Correct.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. Easy as. There's no moving parts in this thing. It's a wonderful, simple system.
Nice.
The French, for some reason, use an air compressor. Like the Panther, actually. The Panther
Okay.
has one. All right. So what else can we talk about?
Can you tell me about the canvas mask?
Keeps the rain out.
Fair enough.
That's it. Just keeps the rain out.
Keeps it out of like sort of the workings of the gun and the mantlet or what?
Basically, it stops the rain falling through the top of the turret.
Fair enough.
Simple
Is
as.
that something that happens in other tanks commonly without a canvas
if
mask?
it's not well designed, yes.
Okay.
It can do.
Okay.
Smoke grenade launchers also very good for your beer cans. So if you're especially out in the winter, you want to keep your beer cold. That's
Tanking under the influence is obviously not recommended.
who's going to stop you? I mean, I
You
got
have a tank, to be fair.
I got pulled over in my tank once. It took me about 10 minutes to even realize there was a guy behind me with the flashy lights.
I noticed that it doesn't have rear view mirrors.
It does not. That's actually something that if you look at, let's say, a Leopard tank.
Yeah.
The Leopard tanks are fully street legal. They have indicators,
Right.
they have
Taillights and everything.
Taillights. They got the works. This has got taillights but no rear mirrors. The theory is the guy up top tells the driver which way to go. Of course, the driver can't see. So you want to make sure when you're going in reverse, you don't want to get your left and right confused. So if I'm turning around, I'm facing to the rear, and I tell the driver turn left, that's my left, this is his left. Easy answer. Cross your arms. So if you're driving like this and you say, I want you to go that way, you think, it's my left hand.
Okay.
How much else we said on that? So there are things that if you were a new tanker, people will tell you to go get. For example, aviation guys will be told, go get me 20 yards of flight line.
Right, or a sky hook or something like this.
Something like that. Indicator fluid for the flashers.
course.
Yeah. So can you think of any tank-related ones to watch out for?
Any sort of tank-related trick question? What would be the thing that a new tanker might be tripped up the most if somebody told him to go get? Something that never actually existed.
Well, the very basic one is you're given a ball peen hammer and you're told to look for soft spots in the armor.
Oh boy.
So if you're in the motor pool and you hear this kind of tink, 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 and he's got a piece of chalk, he's looking for soft spots in the armor.
Okay.
Another one is warming up the crosswind sensor. Now, this particular tank, I don't believe, has a crosswind sensor, but it's a little thing that sticks straight up at the back, and you sort of sit behind it, and by use of breath and friction, you warm up the crosswind sensor. We had a guy looking for 3 weeks for the front slope wear gauge.
For the what?
The front slope wear gauge. So
Oh,
you come
boy.
around to the front slope.
So that's like
You-
a solid almost 4.5 inches armor. That's not about to
pretty-
wear
that's pretty
anytime
nice.
soon.
But you can see how it's not entirely smooth here.
Sure.
Now, it's actually a cast, just an issue with the casting and welding.
Right.
But what you tell the guy is it's because we've been going over all the trees, we're knocking down trees, and we're worried about the wear. So you get this gauge, it's about yay big, got a little orange needle on it, and you use it to test the wear on the front slope.
Okay.
We had a guy looking for that for nearly 2 weeks.
Oh boy.
I mean, by the time we were done, the entire company was in on this.
None of
too,
you were
except for-
kind enough to let him know.
Oh God, no! Why would we do that? All right, so the M85, it's sort of mounted, if I recall, upside down, and when you go inside, you'll see a chute, a metal chute that goes all the way around the cupola down to where the ammunition bin is.
Fair enough.
So the thing required incredible amounts of care and attention in order to work reliably, and when it didn't work, it was still annoying as all hell to fix. So for example, if a regular M2 caliber 50 runs away on you, you just twist the ammo belt, or you do something like that, and it'll stop it. You can't get at the ammo belt in the M85 to twist it, so you got to get a screwdriver or something like that, shove it into the chute, and hopefully that will jam the thing.
Highly inconvenient in some sort of combat situation, obviously.
If you ever get a chance, talk to Brett, the driver of this thing, and ask him his opinion on the M85. He will give you an earful.
Colorful language, I'm sure.
We're tankers, of course. Worse yet, I'm an Irish tanker. All right, what do you think this thing's for?
For this one, it looks like a way that people could even use it just to get on easier.
That's one answer.
Sure.
And the other thing is, if you accidentally drop something from the driver's hatch, you can just reach down and get it.
Might
It's not going
catch
to
it.
fall all the way down.
Would you see this sort of thing as a standard add-on?
A which?
Like, would tankers use this as a standard add-on in the field just to...
For the M60, yeah.
Sure, okay.
Yeah. You don't need it on the Abrams because the Abrams is much, much flatter and things don't roll quite as far.
Okay.
Like your headset or whatever. Your headset falls off here, it'll go all the way down. Or we did have one guy that accidentally left his sidearm on the front. It slid off the front of the tank after we hit a concrete ballard, and then he ran over it. Fortunately, we found the remains, so the paperwork on this is much, much easier.
One of the things that you see on this tank that's different from the tanks that we see nowadays,
Blue camo.
there's the blue camo, Twitch Prime.
Yes.
Fancy. It's all decked out, but you see, like, this is it's really, really big, and the slope is really steep, and it's our modern tanks have a much flatter a much flatter hull.
They do.
So what were we looking at back then that we needed a design like this for, compared to what we have today?
The difference is in the ammunition now. Modern ammunition tends to bite in
Okay.
a lot more than older ammunition did. So there's less effect for the slope. And the other problem is as you slope something, then you lose the amount of space that's inside. So if you imagine this is just a cross-section of internal volume. Straight down here, you got an angle here, you got an angle there, and there's another third small angle in there. That's all. That's a limited amount of internal volume. Now, if you have a much smoother slope with a more vertical front, you have a lot more room inside for fuel and people and equipment and electronics and air conditioning.
And activities.
If you have air conditioning in your tank. I did not. This tank doesn't have air conditioning. This tank doesn't even have running water. British tanks have running water.
Doesn't even have a kettle.
It do-
Heathens. This is my favorite view of the tank personally.
Oh, yeah, okay. You like the posterior of the
You
tank.
know? Why be slick when you can be thick?
I don't have anything I can respond with.
Down with the thickness, as it were.
All right, so we got of course, the engine is here. It's the diesel engine that has been used by bloody everybody. AV1790, as I do recall.
Okay,
The
when was that
Israelis
engine
put it into
developed?
Centurions. It's actually an old design.
Okay.
It goes back to the early 50s, I would wager, if not late 40s.
Okay. What's the horsepower in that baby?
It's about 800, 750 to 800.
Nice.
So definitely
That'll-
more than my car does.
That'll move you.
Especially if you're 54 tons. Stowage bins, always very important. Same with this, bustle racks. I don't know how the Soviets get away without bustle racks. I mean, where do you put your laptops?
Right. How are you going to hit your tanks while
Actually,
you're
in fairness,
tanking?
I kept my laptop inside the tank. I figured it was
I think
safer.
that would probably be a better idea.
It was a better idea. In connectors, oh, there's a couple of them. This one needs to be hammered in a little bit with a fine adjusting tool called a sledgehammer.
This thing it's got a huge cast turret, and
does.
looking at
It's
you know,
lovely.
oh, it's beautiful. That's my favorite. I like a cast turret, but in looking in this tank's contemporaries at the time, kind of with our opponents, you see a much lower profile and like a low hemispheric turret. What do you think that any advantage that this would be over that? If
Well,
any?
this is a defensive tank.
Okay.
So the opposition, the Soviets had this theory that attack is the best form of defense.
Okay.
So they had tanks that you got in, you went to fight, and then the fight was done.
Sure.
This thing was designed to sit in the German border for days on end, if necessary, behind a hill. So the most important thing about this, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, is gun depression.
Right.
All right, American tanks and World of Tanks, gun depression is awesome. The
Right.
Russian tanks, I don't know about you, but they infuriate the hell out of me with a lack of gun depression.
Right.
Very, very, very happy tanks, unfortunately. And so what happens is the front end of the gun goes down.
Mm-hmm.
The back end, which comes back to about here, has to go up,
Right.
which means that you have to have a high roof.
Got to have more space in the turret for the gun to move if you want the gun to be more mobile.
Exactly. So this is designed to hide behind a hill on the reverse side and shoot down the hill or shoot over from a hidden position, from a hold down position. The Soviet tanks were not really designed for that, which is why this is so big. And again, it's roomy inside. You can have a hammock
Right.
in there. Actually, why don't we go check it out?
Okay.
All right, we're going to get up. And I was reaching for the tank first, so I guess I better get up first. I will be completely unchivalrous and leave you to your own devices.
Age before beauty.
I'm not even going to argue that.
Facts is facts, but hey,
All right, come on up.
sure.
All right, you coming up that way?
That's right.
All right. That was easy. Well, you might as well get in first into the gunner seat.
Okay, sure.
So, into the TC's hatch and scoot all the way forward.
That's right. You can take that.
Although I think you were in the loader's hatch last time, weren't you?
I got all around. All right.
There you go. You
Here
need
we
that?
go.
All right. Just kind of squeeze here. Ordinarily, of course, I'd be sitting on this chair, but it doesn't look all that great in the camera. Right, you are now in the gunner's position of an M60A1. What do you see in front of you? Do you have any clue what anything does?
You got all sorts of stuff, all sorts of switches. It looks like. So would this control? This is the machine gun. Would this be the coaxial one, or is this the one? in the
It would be
turret?
the coaxial. The
Okay.
TC's got his own control up here.
Okay, and then you have one for the main gun.
Yes.
And it talks
that's
about
the fun one.
Right, and it says here, There's some abbreviations for Elev Trav Power On. What's that referring to?
That is the hydraulic system for the controls.
Okay.
So instead of having to hand crank, and you'll see there's a hand crank down, if you reach forward with your left hand, you might have to swap the mic there, but
Right.
there you go.
Listen here.
Reach forward. Forward. No, that's
Forward.
Master Blaster.
More forward. More forward.
Forward and down.
Forward and down. Here.
Forward. There you go.
Like so.
Yeah. That is a crank. So if you rotate that forwards or backwards, the gun will elevate or should elevate or depress.
Okay.
Give it a go. See what happens.
Sure. See what happens. Looks.
No.
No, nothing.
You crank the entire handle. It's
oh,
a
you
wheel.
cranked the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
like
go.
so.
Okay, so it's been disconnected. All right.
Probably for the best.
All right. For power control, you have in front of you what is helpfully labeled the gunner's power control.
Right.
You know them as the Cadillacs.
Oh, right.
I don't know why they're called Cadillacs, but they're called Cadillacs. So what you do to aim the gun is with one or both hands, you grasp the control, and you'll feel that there's a switch. It's called a
Yeah.
palm switch on the far side. That activates the power traverse system.
Okay. So we have a palm switch here, and then there's another switch here. What does that one do?
Boom.
Ah.
That's the
thing
fun.
to know.
That's the fun switch.
Ah, okay. And then there's a similar thing on the other side. Do they
Correct.
both
So
do
you
the same
can use
thing?
either hand or both hands at the
Okay.
same time, depending on what you're doing with your hand. All right. So that red thing that you had down there. Hold it with your left hand.
Yeah.
Give it a quick twist to the right. What do you think that does?
Well, it says manual firing on it.
Uh-huh.
So one could assume if you've lost power to this gunner's power control that you could use this and you could fire the gun.
Correct.
Fair enough.
It's basically a dynamo. It's a generator.
Okay.
So as you give it a much harder twist than you did, but that's why they call it the Master Blaster. If everything else is down, you twist that handle, the dynamo gives you electrical current, and it sends the round down range.
All right.
All right, so we are in the happy situation that we have a lot of light here. Now, part of the reason is because there is a gap, which allows, of course, the rain to come in. The gunner's primary sight would ordinarily be there. What they do have to shoot is your auxiliary sight, the gunner's auxiliary sight. So, try to position yourself to be looking at that.
Okay, so in theory.
So, you'd be looking at there, your hand will be on the controls.
Right.
Directly above you, up here, what
Yeah.
you got?
Why don't you tell me?
It's a light.
Okay.
It's a dome light.
Can you go?
Yeah.
That's
Well, we've turned off the master power.
Okay.
So you got a white lens, and is it blue in this tank?
This one says
I think-
it's red. This one's red.
Red?
Yeah.
All right. Later, once we go into a sort of a blue-green. But basically, red for night, white for you're not tactical.
Okay.
Easy as.
Well, on a scale
TC
from
scale.
1 to 10,
Yes.
how would you rate the comfort of this tank?
One second, I'm going to get back in the TC seat here.
This is a very technical analysis.
Doing all the stuff in the pupil works. If you look through the gun sight.
Oh, this is lovely. Oh, this is lovely. Yeah, this is definitely a comfortable tank. The ride's not quite as good as the M1, I'm told. But, so if an Abrams is, let's say, a 9, this is a 7.5 to 8.
7.5 to 8 in comfort rating.
Yeah.
There we
We're
have
pretty
it.
comfortable.
All right.
All right.